This is a 2006 Subaru STI, and this one here is an example of what you get when you reach the top of the food chain in the Subaru world. Now, I've reviewed this car before. This belongs to a good friend of mine, Ed, and I reviewed this about 2 years ago when it was just basic bolt-ons. Well, as fate has it, and it being a Subaru, it lost compression on one of the cylinders. So, it went through a full rebuild, fully built bottom end, big turbo, just all out, over $10,000 into this build now. And here, we get to see the two paths that Subaru owners get to take. They either blow the motor and move on to a Tacoma, or they commit and they go to the top of the food chain. They get that built motor and finally get that reliable Subaru that everyone wishes they had. So, a lot of you longtime viewers know I have this burning hatred for Subarus, and it comes with good reason. And before I go into why, I want to start with I actually used to be a big Subaru fan. In high school, I thought WRX STIs were the coolest thing. I had my WRC shirt all the time, wore it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I probably have a picture of me in it when I was 14, and I absolutely love Subarus. A lot of my high school friends said the reason they like Subarus now is because of me and the way I talked them up so much. But when I moved to Utah, where there's a high volume of Subarus and I got to experience them firsthand, I don't like them that much anymore. Now, that's not to say I really would like the opportunity to build my own one day and do it the way I think a Subaru should be, but that's a topic for another time. We're going to talk about this car here and, you know, what happens when you go all the way to the top of that Subaru food chain. There's a lot of vape lords to beat, a lot of piston rings to jump over, and Ed went through the battle with this Subaru here. Now, as you can tell, there's been some money put into this car. You can just tell those are Cybon carbon fenders, a lot of aero goodies on this car. The suspension's pretty dialed in with KW coilovers and the whole 9 yards. But the big thing here is the motor here. Fully built bottom end with Wiseco parts and a giant GT3076 from Garrett spinning this car to 425 at the wheels on the dyno. That's with 91 octane. This car makes 510 with E85 as well. So let's go pop the hood and take a look at what's going on underneath before we go for a drive. So here is the EJ25 that has been thoroughly dissected. Look at it. You know he spent a lot of money because he's got gritty hydraulic lift supports. That is flex of the year for sure. So, we've got a big old Garrett turbo here. How big, you may ask? It's about one banana big. This whole bottom end's been totally built. Factory compression ratio though, so that way it's basically the stock motor just on steroids, totally super buff, right? And can take a lot of abuse. So, it's being fed 23 pounds of boost by this Garrett GT3076. I think it has 1000cc injectors if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Really, the fuel system is a limiting factor in this car. That's why we can't go past 425 of the wheels. But 425 of the wheels on 91 octane, that's not that bad, honestly. The heads are stock. Part of that is to, you know, they've been rebuilt, but part of that's to remain good drivability, because sometimes you go cams and you get bad low-end drivability, you know. It's just easier to leave it there, right? Because the main intention with this build was to really just beef up the bottom end, get it strong, and then while we're there, while in Rome, right, we're going to feed it some more boost. So, this turbo is pretty big though. It is pretty laggy, as you'll see in the video coming up soon. But otherwise, everything else in this car has been totally taken care of. Proper catch can. Basically, all the reliability modifications have been done to make this car as reliable as possible. And what you get here is this EJ25 right in front of us. Let's get in the car, let's give it a rip, and let's see how she do. Let's get this thing on the road. Alright, let's give it some sauce. Oh, the turbo noises! Oh, the camera moved. That much torque, huh? Oh, it's moving more! Oh, cut! Cut! Alright, take two, let's go. Oh, we're in a residential area. Sorry. Hey, that's Norm. Hey, Norm. It is nuts the way this car sounds when the turbo comes on. I'm sure you guys can hear it right now. That once you're in boost, it is just all turbo noise, right? You don't hear the burble anymore. All you're hearing is that GT3076 creating a massive vacuum in the area outside of this car because it's sucking in so much air. Ed really should put a sticker on this car that says, you know, hold on to your small animals because this turbo will suck it right in. Alright, let's go again. Whoa! One thing you notice with this power band though is that when you in between gears, you get a lot of lag in between. Really, like, I'm not gonna flat foot shift this car. I do not want to blow this transmission up, but really I feel like that's one thing it needs. It needs that or anti-lag or something to keep and boost, because there is pretty much a pretty good delay in between gears when you're going at it. Hey boys, that's the thing about these cars. They attract so many dude bros. So, if you want to find yourself a nice dude bro, here's what I suggest. You get yourself an STI. You make sure it whistles and sneezes at everyone. And I'm sure you one day will find yourself a nice dude bro. So, power is pretty insane, right? It's pretty quick. This is easily the fastest straight line Subaru I've been in. I'm sure there's faster, don't get me wrong guys, but you know, 425 at the wheels, that's some good go juice. And we're not going to go too much into the chassis dynamics of this car. I feel like I covered that pretty good in the very first review of this vehicle. These cars are very capable. I know they are. The guy I bought my BMW from has one of these prepped for STU, SCCA, and that car's an absolute monster. I got so close to coming first place PAX at an event, and the only person to beat me was him in a white Hawkeye like this, but built with totally different intentions, right? Only bolt-ons allowed, makes 330 at the wheels, but the suspension's super dialed. And that car is just an absolute riot to drive. That's how this car used to be. Get on the throttle, out of the corners quick and peppy, right? Now with this car, it's still corners good, it still has good grip, but now I go around a corner and I want to get on power, and we're waiting, and we finally hit boost on corner exit. We don't get that raw, out of the corner, tires gripping, ripping out of the corner exit. Now it's kind of delayed and you just wait for it. And then once that straight comes up, then you get all your power, right? So like right here, go around this corner. And it's almost kind of like snappy once you get out, right? There's not this like nice transient response, not this nice ramp up. It's just in your face, let's go, right? So now you kind of have to time your power, and it's really hard to get good corner exit, because when power hits that hard on corner exit, it pulls you out of the corner. Essentially what this car is going to do is, when you get on power and you're going around a corner, right, you're turning, when you get on power, that your radius goes from this to now pulling the car out of the corner, right, going towards the outside of the corner. So now you have to change your driving line to compensate for that, because really what you want to do is make your straightaways as long as possible if you're trying to drive fast, correct? So, but now you're sacrificing some speed on the infield just to get used to that power. So what I really liked about this car the first time I drove it was just, it was such an exhilarating experience in the twisties of the canyon, right? Because you're railing through gears, you're heel toeing down, you're going into the corner, you're hot on the tires, you get on the power and you're out of there instantly. Now, yeah, the straightaways are fast, but I don't get that same experience now. It is, the way this motor has been built and its intentions are, has totally changed the characteristics of the car. And for what I like to do, and what for Ed really likes to do also, is that's not that fun, honestly, right? Yeah, like I said, you saw the smile on my face. It's fun to go on the streets and do a couple pulls, right? But that gets boring after a while. Driving your car hard around the canyon or the track, that never gets boring. But we've lost the peak of that now. It's not as fun to do that. Don't get me wrong, it's still fun to rip around a corner on boost and go. But it's just not the same anymore. I think that's what took the charm of this car away for me. And I think that's what Ed has experienced as well, the owner of this vehicle. And I think that's why he's ready to move on. He has reached peak Subaru food chain. He's seen what it's all about and realized, you know, I want something else, right? So here he is now, getting ready to sell this car and move on to the next thing. So it really is a case of don't meet your heroes. In the car scene, we know how this whole Insta-famous thing works, and this is one of those cars that just reel in all the clout. And Ed isn't one of those guys by any means, honestly. He's a very humble man, but he has the car that every scene kid aspires to have. This is the car right here. And really, it's not that good. It's fun, it's a quality build, don't get me wrong there, but there are a lot better ways to enjoy cars. The max enjoyment you're gonna get is talking about it to other people. Giving them a pull, and that's it. That's where it ends right there. And to me, cars are a lot more than just that. And don't get me wrong, like I said, this car's been built with high quality, top-notch parts. It's a very quality car, and with what it does the straight line stuff great, and it corners pretty decently right. But there's just a point where the cornering and the power band just don't mesh together anymore now. They just are two different entities in this car rather than two entities working together, right? And I think that's where I lose the charm in this car. I think this is where I'd go step back and like, hey, I think a smaller turbo in this car would be a lot funner, right? So that's really my 2 cents on this car. I will be honest, it is interesting. This is probably like the hardest I've ever railed on a Subaru that I've ever driven, right? I've done car reviews on them where I'm driving casually and they start to overheat, right? And it's nice. We haven't surpassed 205 degrees of coolant temps, and just it's all working good, which is amazing, right? That is definitely a pro to this build. It all works consistently. Keyword consistently. But I can't have that. It's mildly traumatizing driving these Subarus that break frequently, right? I've had so many either break on me stories, riding with people where they broke on them, driving it hard at the track, whatever it is, on the streets. I remember, like, Ed going for a spin in this car and it spilled coolant everywhere, and we had to push it back to my house. That we've done this before. We've been around this. It's just in the back of your head the whole time, though. And I think that's what soured it for me personally. And if you love Subarus, that's great. They're great cars, honestly. They're fun cars. They, all the rally heritage is really a hard thing to deny with this car. It really makes it what it is. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's hard to trust sometimes. They're hard to trust. Personally, I'd like to build my own Subaru one day, right? I'd love to build a Blaubai STI, and really make it that reliable Subaru that I could just wail on all day and be the rally hero I feel like I should be when I drive a Subaru. And that's the other thing I think this car loses. It loses that feeling of being a rally hero, right? I mean, even when this car, in its prior guise where I did the initial review, it was still lowered, but you still felt like a rally god ripping through the canyon. I don't get that feeling anymore in this car. That charm is gone. And I think that's the biggest problem for me with a build like this. And like I said, nothing's been done wrong. It's just the characteristics of the car have changed, and that's all it really comes down to. But with all that said, before we end this video and go to the outro, let's do one more poll. Oh, dude. This thing rips. And there you guys have it. That's my review of a big turbo, fully modified STI. And it really does come down to a case of don't meet your heroes, right? It's a great car, don't get me wrong, it's reliable. Ed can now track this car and not worry about it breaking. But it's always in the back of your head regardless, right? So, with that said, Ed is moving on to another car after this. If any of you guys are interested in buying an already built STI, he's actually got it for sale. I'll tag his Instagram down below in the comments and in the description. So if you really do have interest in this car, feel free to message him. I heard he might be looking at a Supra next. But this has to go first before we find out what he buys next. Anyway guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope it didn't offend you Subaru guys out there. I know it's easy to get hurt over someone talking poorly about your car, and I know what it's like. So my intention isn't to offend people, but that's just my opinion, and we're all entitled to it. And honestly, I do hope to see myself with a Subaru one day and building it my way, and maybe it won't turn out to be a don't meet your hero situation. Anyway guys, I hope you guys like this car review, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.